Welcome to Leading the Follower with your host, Rebecca Benston. Good morning, good morning. It is me, Rebecca Benston, and I am back with you for Leading the Follower on this lovely Friday. Let's see. I had a topic that I want to talk about. So I'm trying to think, which way do I go? Let's see. Um, well, first of all, I want to start by reminding you to go over to the Higher Ground Books and Media website and check out what we've got over there and subscribe. I will be working on a new release for next month over this weekend, and we'll have that ready for pre order probably within the next several days. So, in the meantime, check out our latest releases. I Love You Big by Jennifer Bolton, and One Day in May by Joanne Coleman. And those are available now on Amazon or um, in the Higher Ground Books and Media shop. You can just check that out at any time. When you subscribe, we send you email notices when there's a new release, when there are author events, when there's anything going on our blog or whatever that we feel you need to know. We won't bombard you with things. I try to keep that to a minimum because I know from my own experience of sorting through hundreds of emails a day and throwing away at least 90 of those that can be a real pain and doesn't really help anybody. So try not to waste your time and energy with that. But it does help us if we have more subscribers. It helps us to reach more people who need to know about the materials that we publish. So um, it's greatly appreciated. Anyway, today, also, if you would subscribe to the Leading the Follower blog, that is also um, very helpful to us. And from time to time, I have different articles up over there um, that I write in conjunction with this podcast or just standalone thing. So it just really depends. That is one of those blogs that is written kind of as the spirit moves me. So um, I try not to stay on a schedule with things like that because if it's not worth saying, I generally won't bother saying it, and I try to write only the things that make sense to write for me. Anyway, so now that I've had every possible notification bell go off during this first few minutes, I think I'm ready to go ahead and talk about today's topic. Um, let's see. I actually thought about this the other day and had wanted to talk a little bit about our feature theme that we are covering on the Higher Ground Books and Media site this week. In all of our social media, what we generally do is we have a theme, and all of our promos and things like that will relate back to that theme. And generally, it is focused on one of our three pillars that we try to align with in our mission and philosophy. And those are healing from trauma, using your gifts, and growing your faith. And that translates into hugs. It's just a fun way to remember the three things that will help you feel the best about yourself, in my opinion. It's purely from my imagination and from my experience. So it may not be a real fit for you, but it's my attempt at helping people to understand the things that they go through and to put them to good use in their lives, um, and help them connect to God and to their relationship with Him in a more productive and beneficial way. So, That's the purpose. But anyway, our theme this week has been about your mental state, guarding your mental state, and trying to keep yourself motivated and inspired and mentally healthy, and how to take care of yourself. We talked a little bit about um, the difficulties we have in relationships with others on Monday's podcast, and if you haven't listened to that, you can go back and find that on Spotify, or there's several different places where it's available. I'll try to remember to list that in the show notes. I always forget to put all of our different locations there. I'm going to try to be better about that. Um, so I think I think the best way for me to go about this, let's see. I'm going through my notes here to make sure I don't forget, because there were things that I wanted to tell you that I don't want to forget, because they made sense at the time, and I know that it's something that I was meant to say. So, but first of all, there's a disclaimer here before I start talking about and my experience with anxiety and depression and all that, and how that has affected me throughout my life. I want to say that I am not a licensed counselor. Um, my experience that I'm sharing with you comes from years of dealing with the problems of anxiety and depression on my own, and having gone through counseling as well and received, that kind of treatment, therapy for those things. I do have certification as a mental health coach, but I am not a counselor. So I want to make that plain before anybody tries to say that I'm giving medical advice. I'm not ever going to be doing that, because I'm not a medical professional, and I don't want anyone to put that on me as I'm trying to push something on them. I'm never trying to push anything on anybody, but especially anything that requires uh, special certification to do so. I would not want to do that. So, with that said, I just want to tell a little bit about my story and how I dealt with anxiety and depression. I've dealt with it since my late teens, probably, well, maybe even sooner than that. Um, it's been a long time, so I've dealt with it for so long, and really only in the last 10 or 15 years have I been able to get that under control to the point where it's not extremely burdensome. Now I do have periods of time where something will cause me to slip back into feelings of anxiety, but it's nowhere near what it used to be. Um, Usually now with prayer and focusing on the things that helped me through it before, the different techniques that I was given through counseling and things like that, I am able to bring myself out of that negative space and move forward. Um, so basically, I've been suffering with anxiety and depression for probably 75% of my life, and it's not fun. So, but it does give me the unique qualification to be able to talk with you about that experience from a place of knowing where it takes you, and how awful it can be. Um, so, um, let's see. Some of the things that I shared on our promos this week had to do with ways that we can help improve our mental state. And one of those was through breathing exercises, which I would highly recommend, because whenever I'm not in a good headspace, just simply sitting back and doing the breathing exercises that I could find, in my studies and everything, those were very helpful to get you centered and get you back to a place where you're not focused on 100 problems that you can have running through your mind at any given time. And it kind of regulates everything and helps you get calmed down. So, definitely the breathing exercises are beneficial. And if you're someone who responds well to that kind of thing, um, by all means, if you go, the place where I find the most information on this stuff actually is Pinterest has a lot of good places, but they also have a lot that aren't good. So just be careful with what you're looking at. And, you can try breathing exercises, and if it doesn't do what you think it should do for you, then just don't do it again. It's kind of like a trial and error. It's not exactly the same experience for every person. And, we don't all respond to treatment the same way. So, um, but it does help you calm down. And if nothing else, just focusing on the breathing is what pulls you out of the focusing on the thing that's causing you anxiety. It draws you away from that and lets you just focus on something that's non-threatening, like, inhale, exhale, and just being still, and, basically uh, letting God kind of take over and calm you down. So that's one thing. The other thing that was very helpful to me is positive affirmations. Now, as cheesy as that sounds, I know that a lot of people look at that and they think, "Oh my gosh, that's just so dumb. Why would I ever just sit and talk myself into thinking I'm wonderful or whatever when I'm just in such a bad place?" Well, that's exactly why you would do it. You would want to do that because it's helpful in reprogramming your self-talk and you know instructing yourself to believe positive things about yourself rather than negative. You'd be surprised how much negative words can become ingrained on your soul, and how how seriously your body takes the messages it gets from the mind. Um, when you're constantly, downgrading yourself, or berating yourself and saying, hey, I'm just such an idiot, or I'm so stupid, or I'm ugly, or I just can't do this, and I can't do that. Everything I do is wrong. Then you're giving yourself the message that this is the reality, that you are indeed all of these awful things, and there's nothing positive in there to offset that. So if you would record yourself for a day as you say things to yourself, in private or around other people or whatever, what would that what would that sound like on the playback? Would it be mostly positive, or would it be mostly negative, or is it balanced in any way? Um, how does it make you feel to hear it back at the end of the day? If you find that the words that you're using to talk to yourself about yourself are more negative than positive, then that's probably a good place to start to try and wrestle your anxiety and depression into submission. Um, you need to say things that are positive in order to have positive outcomes. Now, I'm not saying you need to be like ridiculous and, tell yourself things that aren't true, obviously, because that borders on some other mental health issues that we really don't want to get into here. Um, but, but really, I don't think it's a terrible thing to try to look at yourself as God sees you. And God sees all of us as His children, that He loves very dearly, that He made in His own image, and who He believes are beautiful souls that He wants the best for. So, if nothing else, one big positive affirmation that you can use each and every day without ever having to feel bad about it is to say, God loves me. I am God's creation, things like that, because those are, in fact, the truth for everybody. God made me in His image. Um, I am beautiful to God, and God has equipped me with everything I need. Stuff like that. Um, if you're looking for examples of positive affirmations, I'm pretty sure you can find lots of those if you go and, if you Google it, or if you go on Pinterest and look at some of the inspirational pins that are over there. There's a lot of stuff that you can sort through. But anything that is a positive thing about yourself is good. So if you're having trouble finding positives about yourself, sit down, make time for yourself. Get your little notebook out, whatever it is that you use to record your thoughts, if you do that. And if you don't, start doing that. Um, Write down at least 5 things about yourself that you're happy with. And, the degree to which you struggle with that could be a really good indicator of why you're struggling with other things. Um, it should be moderately easy for you to come up with at least 5 things about yourself that are acceptable to you, that are okay, that make you feel, you know, okay, or I mean, normal. I'm saying that with air quotes that you can't see, um, because everybody's normal is slightly different. I would say, depending on what you have been taught, what you've been brought up to understand and believe about people. Um, but for the most part, there is a baseline that um, we can all kind of agree on. And the fact is, we're all human beings, and God does love us as His children, and He does want the best for us. So, when in doubt, start there. Okay. So, breathing exercises and positive affirmations. Um, I've posted a few things on our social media this week, and those were just a couple of the strategies for dealing with enhancing your mental state or improving your mental state. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about, let's see, the importance of being honest with yourself as part of the healing process. Um, if you're not honest with yourself about the things that are causing you anxiety and depression, it's going to be, 3 times as hard for you to recover from the damage that all of that has done. You're going to have a difficult time coming up with a good solution that will heal the problem if you can't be honest with yourself about what the problem is. Because if you're not telling yourself the truth, then you're just putting band aids on things that are causing different reactions in you. And that's not going to get to the root of the whole problem for you. So I will say, um, in my teen years, I was going through a lot of stuff. And I've said this before. I won't be talking about the particulars of that just yet. I'm going to try to gloss over it. Trust me, I've been very honest with myself about what the problems were, but I don't feel that it's my place to talk about all of it here, because it involves other people and it's really their business, and I don't want to get too deep into that. But the impact it had on me, that's what I have control over. Um, so, I was in and out of counseling, trying to find the right fit for a counselor for many, many years. Once I got to a place where it was safe to do that, I did seek help. And it took a lot. It took quite a while for me to find a counselor who was, um, speaking my language, so to speak, someone who could really draw everything out of me and help me to deal with it in a way that was productive. So once I found that person, I stayed with her for quite a while, and then finally, it was really kind of neat to get to a point with her where she actually was able to write a letter saying, "Hey, um, that I had dealt with all my stuff and I was good, and that my anxiety seemed to be under control, and that I'd made great progress with it and no longer needed to come and see her. Um, I didn't really need this letter for anything other than just my own gratification, I guess, just to prove that I'm okay, you know. But my anxiety and depression was debilitating at one point, and it made it very difficult for me to function. And I didn't want to take medications, but I ended up being on several different types of antidepressants over the years. And until I finally said, these are not going to answer, they're not going to be the answer to the problem. And so I stopped taking all of that and haven't gone back to it, never will go back to it. I just don't believe that those things are good for you at all. And whenever I can deal with something without medication, then I deal with it without medication. I mean, at 51, I actually am not on any prescription medications. I'm not under a doctor's care for anything at this point. And given the state of the world these days, I probably will not ever entrust my health to a doctor um, until things get cleared up and people start acting with a little bit of integrity and honesty again, if that ever was a thing. Um, Again, that's a whole different animal that we can talk about some other day. Um, but I went through all of this and didn't realize all along the way the things that contributed to my anxiety and depression um, were things that I could easily deal with if I could just talk through them. So finding that counselor um, that could hear me and help me talk it out was vital to surviving that. Because as you know, with anxiety and depression, sometimes if it's unchecked, we really can get into a situation where people lose hope to the point where they try to hurt themselves, or in some cases, commit suicide or things like that. Now, mostly what I was afraid of was I was afraid I was going to do something to hurt myself, but I did not want to do something to hurt myself. I just didn't feel that I had total control over my ability to not hurt myself. And I struggled to not give in to that for a while, but I didn't realize that I was dealing with postpartum depression after my daughter was born. Um, I had all of these hormonal issues that came up after that, and really uh, huge problems with anxiety um, and depression following the birth of my daughter. So I struggled with that for quite a while, and and it was a scary time. It was um, just not a fun part of my life. So having found a decent counselor and understanding that um, all of these things were things that I had really blown up to be larger than they were helped me to move into the next phase of my life where I picked up my faith journey again and really started entrusting all of that to God. I had been struggling with all this, but also I had disconnected from my relationship with God years before, and I had no real guidance as to what He would have wanted me to do, and no real understanding of the fact that He would have been there with me, and in fact was there with me through the whole thing. So, um, had I not gone through all of that and then gotten the help that I needed with that, um, I probably never would have made my way back to having a good relationship with God, um, or any at all for that matter. So it's really been interesting to look at where I've been and to know that all of these things were kind of building blocks to get me to the point where I felt comfortable talking about the things that I went through, how I recovered from those, and, possibly trying to help people find ways to recover from their own challenges that they face. And again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a mental health professional, but I am someone who is comfortable sharing my experiences with others who may be facing the same thing. And I think that that plays a huge role in being able to heal ourselves, is when we see that we aren't the only person who is dealing with that. So, and that's kind of what I like to do with the books we publish at Higher Ground, is publish stories that talk about things that people go through that other people might think, um, nobody else is experiencing. So we do a lot of true stories, memoir, biography, that kind of thing. We deal with recovering from abuse and addiction and poverty and injury and disease and all of those things, because those are the important things. Those are the things that seek to do damage to us as God's creation. That's how the devil attacks us. And it's important that for those of us who are able to share our story, that we do that. And for those who need to hear our story, that they eventually pick up those stories and read about what other people have gone through, so they understand that they're not alone and that there is a way out of it. So it's a really good thing when we have new stories come in that we can share. So with that, I think that's enough for today. I'm gonna leave you with this. Be good to yourself, and make sure that if you're going through something, you take the time to stop and evaluate how you're talking to yourself. Um, Try to do some positive things to bolster your attitude toward yourself, and that will translate into some more positive things for you. Um, Also, when you need to, stop and take a breath. Do the breathing exercises if you can find some that work for you. And don't be afraid to plaster your mirrors or whatever with positive affirmations to help you remember that you are worthy of living a good life and a positive experience as a human being. Um, God made us for a purpose, and He means for us to be happy and healthy and safe. So, with that, I hope you have a very good rest of your Friday, a very good weekend, and I will talk to you again on Monday. God bless. Thanks for stopping by. Be sure to check out our website and blog. The blog is at www.leading-the-follower.com. Thanks and God bless.